Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. After 11 days of fighting, a ceasefire between Israel and the Palestinian militant group Hamas in the Gaza Strip has come into effect. Soon after it started, large numbers of Palestinians took to the streets in cars and on foot to celebrate. In Gaza, drivers honked their horns while loudspeakers from mosques pronounced the victory of the resistance. Israel's military said it was removing nearly all emergency restrictions on movement throughout the country. More than 250 people are thought to have died so far in the fighting. Spain has said most of the thousands of migrants who entered its North African enclave of Ceuta this week have returned to Morocco. The Interior Minister, Fernando Grande Marlaska, said the situation there was now much calmer and that authorities were working to help minors and other vulnerable people still in the territory. During the week, around 8,000 people entered Ceuta from Morocco. The minister said 6,500 had now been sent back. Leaders of the world's 20 largest economies have kicked off a global health summit where COVID-19 drug makers are expected to promise cut-price supplies of vaccines for poorer nations. The group of 20 nations looks set to call for voluntary licensing and technology transfers to enable a rapid increase in vaccine production. The EU will also promise to set up vaccination manufacturing hubs in Africa, which faces a dearth of doses. Thousands of Australian students have skipped school and gathered with climate activists to call on the government to stop funding the gas industry. It's after the government committed $468 million towards a power plant. Protesters say the money should be invested in green jobs. Rallies were staged in almost 50 cities and towns across the country.
What do we want?
Myanmar's Junta-Appointed Election Commission will dissolve Aung San Suu Kyi's party because of what it said was fraud in the November election. Local media reported the decision was made during a meeting with political parties, which was boycotted by many of them. Myanmar's military took power at the beginning of February after alleging fraud in a November election won by Suu Kyi's party. Since then, Myanmar activists say more than 800 people have been killed in protests. The British Prime Minister has said he is concerned by revelations around how a controversial 1995 interview with Princess Diana was obtained by the BBC.
Well, I am obviously concerned by the findings of Lord Dyson's report.
Boris Johnson said the BBC should take every step to ensure nothing similar happens again. The conclusion of the inquiry that Martin Bashir lied and the BBC covered up those lies has dominated the newspapers, with William and Harry both releasing statements.
Lied and used fake documents to obtain the interview with my mother.
The Duke of Cambridge has blamed the broadcaster for fueling his mother's paranoia and worsening his parents' relationship. Meanwhile, the Duke of Sussex has said he used to drink a week's worth of alcohol in a day to try to deal with the trauma of his mother's death.
Work that I was going to have to deal with my past.
Prince Harry said he was willing to take drugs more than a decade after she died. He was talking to US talk show host Oprah Winfrey in their new series on mental health. He also spoke of the anxiety and panic attacks he had as a senior royal and his experience of his mother's funeral.
Because if we can share our stories and share our vulnerability, we know now, all of us know, that when you see anyone, hear anyone share their vulnerabilities, and if there's a connection or if there's a relatability to your own story that you perhaps didn't know that you've been feeling or that you've been suffering from, that helps heal that individual, and then there's a ripple effect that carries on from that.
Storms have caused chaos in western Turkey, with gale-force winds and rain battering several neighbourhoods. Winds reach speeds of 80 kilometres per hour in the Aegean Sea. This footage in Ayvalık shows winds battering the harbour. At least 20 boats sank here, while roofs of several houses were blown off and dozens of residences were flooded. And finally, 3 trained Labrador dogs have debuted as Thailand's coronavirus sniffer machines at a university in Bangkok. The retrievers go through hundreds of sweat samples per day as they join the fight to detect infected asymptomatic patients. The dogs can detect a volatile organic compound secreted in the sweat of COVID-19 sufferers, even in the absence of disease symptoms. Scientists on the project say the canines have gone through thousands of samples since early May, with a success rate of nearly 95%. And that's your international news around the world in 5, and now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.